When I first heard the numbers 3 million pages, 180,000 images, 2,000 videos, I didn't just hear statistics. I felt something heavy in my chest because I know numbers like that don't represent paperwork, they represent lives. They represent silence. They represent years of pain that never truly disappeared. And as I sit with what has been released, I realize something. This is not just another headline. This is a moment of exposure so large that it is shaking governments, institutions, royal families, political systems, and financial empires. But before I talk about power, before I talk about politics, I want to talk about people. Because whenever a scandal this big breaks, the powerful dominate the conversation. We talk about ambassadors, we talk about princes, we talk about billionaires, we analyze reputations. But I refuse to let the center of this story shift away from the survivors. When I listen to them speak, I don't hear strategy. I don't hear political calculation, I hear heartbreak, I hear trauma reopening, I hear people who never wanted to be part of history but were forced into it. And I imagine what it must feel like to see millions of pages released to the world, knowing that somewhere inside those documents is your story, knowing strangers are reading details of your pain, knowing the world is dissecting what you lived through. That is not closure, that is reliving, and I cannot ignore that, but I also cannot ignore the scale of what this release reveals. When I look at the names connected, from politics to finance to royalty, I see something deeper than association. I see a system, I see access, I see how proximity to power can create a shield, and that frightens me. Because when someone convicted of serious crimes can continue to move in elite circles, can continue to build relationships, can continue to attend meetings and social gatherings, that doesn't just say something about one individual. It says something about all of us. It says something about how we treat influence. It says something about how often reputation outweighs morality, and I have to ask myself, how many warning signs were ignored? How many red flags were dismissed because someone was useful, connected, wealthy? How many people looked away because the cost of speaking up was too high? These are uncomfortable questions, but growth never happens in comfort. As I watch governments now under pressure, investigations opening in multiple countries, political careers hanging in the balance, I realize something powerful. Transparency is disruptive. It destabilizes, it exposes not just actions but culture. It reveals who protected whom. It reveals who stayed silent. It reveals how power operates behind closed doors. And that is why moments like this matter, not because we enjoy scandal, but because exposure is often the first step toward reform. But here is where I struggle, because releasing documents is not the same as delivering justice. I hear officials say there may be no further prosecutions. I hear statements about review completed, and I think about the survivors. I think about what accountability looks like to them. It doesn't look like file uploads. It looks like responsibility. It looks like consequences. It looks like acknowledgement. And I know that without that, transparency can feel hollow. What shakes me the most is how wide this web stretched, from Norway to Poland, from the United States to the United Kingdom, from business leaders to political figures, from private jets to palace gates. This wasn't isolated. It was interconnected, and when something is that interconnected, it forces us to confront a difficult truth. Corruption is rarely loud at first. It grows quietly, it builds through relationships, it hides behind influence, it survives through mutual benefit. And by the time it's exposed, it has roots everywhere. That's why this moment feels seismic, because it's not one door being opened, it's an entire structure being lit up. I also think about what this teaches us about power. Power itself is not evil, but power without accountability, that's dangerous. Power without oversight becomes entitlement. Power without consequences becomes immunity. And history shows us again and again, immunity breeds abuse. So when I see billionaires expressing regret, politicians defending their decisions, institutions scrambling to respond, I don't just see crisis management. I see the cost of proximity. I see how association with wrongdoing can corrode even the strongest reputations. And maybe that's a lesson in itself. Who we align ourselves with matters. Who we protect matters. What we tolerate matters. But let me say this clearly, I do not celebrate chaos. I do not celebrate reputations collapsing. What I care about is integrity. What I care about is truth. What I care about is building systems where influence cannot override justice. Because if we don't learn from moments like this, then the suffering becomes meaningless. And I refuse to believe that the pain endured by survivors should lead to nothing. This story is not over. More documents may emerge. More revelations may surface. More pressure may build. But what matters most to me is what we as a society choose to demand next. Do we get distracted? Do we move on because it's exhausting? Or do we insist that transparency leads somewhere? Because if all this exposure changes nothing, then power will simply reorganize and continue. But if we demand accountability, if we demand ethical leadership, if we demand that influence never shields wrongdoing again, then this moment becomes transformative. When I look at everything unfolding, I come back to one simple belief. Truth may be delayed, it may be buried. It may be protected by wealth, titles, and connections, but it does not disappear, and when it rises, it forces us to choose. Comfort or courage, silence or accountability, reputation or integrity, and I know where I stand with truth. I stand with survivors. I stand with the belief that no one, no matter how powerful, is beyond scrutiny. Because the measure of a society is not how it treats the powerful, it's how it protects the vulnerable. And if we truly want change, then this cannot just be a scandal. It has to be a turning point.